is called I Almost Died at the Source of the Ganges. Hi, I'm Shashwat. I currently am a Web3 marketeer. Before this, I've been a founder for a very small time. Before this, I was a novelist. And the story actually takes place way before all of that, when I was just a middle-class Indian kid who used to score very well, which means I was giving the IIT JEE exam. So as you can imagine, I'm this young kid, really stressed out. I think my life's gonna end if I don't get in the IITs. And I was raised by a single mother. My mother has this idea, let's go for a trek. You can come back, then get back to your studies and stuff. So I go, okay, cool. Where do we go? We decide to trek all the way to Gomukh, which is not Gangotri. Gangotri is a glacier, the glacier that is the source of the Ganges. Gomukh is 18 kilometers before Gangotri, where the Ganges actually literally begins. Like that's where it's ice and then it turns to water. I've seen that. So the story is me and my mother trekking these 18 kilometers at an altitude where there is absolutely no vegetation. I actually have one of my toes is pretty fucked up because of that trip, because I got so severely injured with my shoe that I had to get it cut, the toenail. But anyway, that is not even the worst part. So the point is 18 kilometers, you can't do it in one day. It's super high altitude. You have these boulders that you have to cross. It's a whole thing. So it's about 12 kilometers in. There's a stop. You rest the night there and then you go further. And we were actually in pretty good shape. I've always been a sports person. We didn't have much trouble doing the trek. We kept going. There's, mile markers. You just keep following them. It's not really that hard, to be honest. My mother was able to do it. But we kept seeing these foreigners travel somewhere below us. Like we were at a very high spot and then there was sort of a cliff and then below you could see some people going as well. And we were always curious, like what path is that they're following? Maybe it's easier. It looks easier always, right? That's maybe one lesson. I don't know. But eventually we take the rest. Then next morning we start. We get to Gomukh. It is quite anticlimactic. I don't know why that was, but the snow is not as thick there as you would hope. It doesn't look anything like a cow's mouth. I don't know, I was like a little underwhelmed. But anyhow, we decided to turn back and we go, hey, you know what? That other path looked smarter. It looked easier. So we'll take that. So I've picked this story very carefully because I know a lot of us are startup people here. So I wanted to have some subliminal message in there, So we decide, my mother and I, to take the other path because it looks smarter and easier. We take it, we do 1 kilometer, there is no mile marker. We do another, there is no mile marker. We can see the path somewhere above us, but at this point we're starting to freak out because this is not a normal trek where, it's in the hills. This is literally, I can count on my fingers how many people were doing that trek. It was like under 10 people, So you really can get lost and you really might not be found, So we start freaking out as the kilometers roll by, and as we get more and more tired, we get more and more paranoid. So at about 3 to 4 kilometers in, we go, you know what? It could just end in us hitting water and there being a cliff and we can't even do anything. So at that time what had happened was we could see a little cliff basically and a mile marker above. So my mother and I decide, you know what we're going to do? We're going to climb this shit. Now I could have probably done it. I was like 18. My mother was a risk. But we figured, hey, you know what? It's a much bigger risk that we just fucking die of exhaustion because we've went 6 kilometers. We've got to come back and get up. So we, in under 30 seconds, find a spot and climb, I would say roughly 500 meters. And that's not like we're not, fresh. It was crazy tiring. I had a fucking rucksack and everything. But we climbed it. It was nuts. I told her go first. So if you fall, I can kind of push you, which was stupid in hindsight, but whatever. But we actually climbed it. And then we were fine. The fuck up is, I have gone back to that moment. It's like 15 years ago, And I still think what could have happened. And I think the takeaway I take from that is, if you don't overthink it, you might be able to do more than you think you can. And also the other path is not always the smarter one. Maybe just carry on. Thanks so much.